This is every build hack to use to upgrade your Minecraft world. Don't just place your beehives inside of a glass dome. I know it makes it easier to farm them, but this example's still easy to farm, and it looks a lot nicer too. See, by taking a campfire, extinguishing it, and then placing our beehive on top with a couple of things of trapdoors lining the outside, we can now decorate the rest of the surrounding area with plants, and that'll give us a way to actually have the bees interact with your build without being an eyesore that you just placed there to farm honey. Here's how to take the wells that you find in the village or in a desert and make them practical. Since I actually disagree with this original post, because it can be kind of awkward to find where a grindstone might make sense in your build. But placing one of these upside down underneath the roof of this well like so, we can then change iron bars underneath it, or chains if you'd like that as well, and then it looks like the device that we would use to retrieve the bucket from the well. I'll be honest, glazed terracotta doesn't get a lot of use in my builds. This post by Socially Under a Rock proves, great name by the way, if you take the time to map out how these different glazed terracotta blocks can interact with each other, then the patterns can get quite pretty. And I particularly love this blue example that we're seeing on the right side. And to me, that looks like the floor that you'd see at the bottom of a swimming pool, which is a much better alternative than just having stone down there. Building a path in your Minecraft survival world often feels like an afterthought, but if you do take the time to go and lay out where you're going to be following that path along between your different builds, it does make it a lot easier if you ever want to share that world with someone else. But how do we make a path that looks interesting that isn't just made of the path block? Well, by just adding in a couple of things of water bottles to that same dirt, you could get the mud blocks that look a lot nicer for these options. And as this example shows, not only does dried mud itself go well with the palette, but then mud bricks, stairs, and slabs also give us variation, which is good. We don't have dirt slabs. This is the closest we're gonna get. Hear these sounds? Well, what's making that noise is actually probably stupider than you think. And what we've got here is snow golems that are walking along amethyst crystals that then when they walk across the blocks give off the sparkly sound that you're hearing. I would just also take this part of the post where they're adding in torches so that you're not accidentally gonna have a bunch of mobs down there for the snow golems to kill. We want just sparkle sounds, not monster sounds. Alright, pop quiz. How would you build a wasteland biome in Minecraft? Now, if you're Exumavoid, you just hollow out a desert biome and get rid of all of the sand, which works pretty well for the stone, but I think what this user has here for the trees looks even better. And the idea of using all the different kinds of spruce trapdoors and slabs to give these really skinny branches to the tree, and then finally topping off for the dead leaves by using mangrove root blocks, it really looks like something that fits in. And then with a couple of these dead coral blocks mixed in as pebbles, we all of a sudden turn what would have just been ugly blocks and make it into something that you're really proud of. Now, if you're someone who plays in survival mode, you're probably sick of seeing all the build hacks built with armor stands, which I get. It looks great, but it's hard to justify if you're not using creative mode commands. So in that case, here's an armor stand build hack that you could actually use inside of your survival world right now. See, by tucking an armor stand inside of the floor like this, then we can add on a leather helmet like so, and then put a sign behind it, and we've got what basically looks to be a leather chair placed at our dining table. And hey, it's a leather hat, so you're able to dye it whatever color you want, giving you even more options to make this yours. And then we can go one step further like they did and add in the armor stands of the legs to the table. Very nice. A lot of players like to build a trash can in the world where they can just toss all their stuff into a cactus or a lava source. And if you're the sort who likes to do that, then you might want to consider putting in something like this. In this suggestion by MCN Koi, all we're doing is just putting a ring of these iron bars around and a trapdoor on top in the corner, letting you seamlessly throw your items into the storage, but we can never fall into whatever damaging source is down there. So whether you use lava or even the void, I won't judge, and guarantee that it can get rid of your items, but it won't get rid of you in the future. Let's say you want to put sugarcane on the ground to decorate, but you don't want the water source visible. Well, no worries, because if you were to take those sugarcane and plant them on top of sand, then by using an upside down sandstone slab like this, we can cover up the water while still having it be usable to plant our crops. And hey, this same trick even works if you want to put lily pads on your floor detail, but you don't want the water visible for them. By just mixing lecterns and trapdoors together, we now have a great looking way to hide storage underneath your floorboards. Because let's be honest, putting your crafting table just up against the wall looks kinda shoddy. But instead, having the lecterns face down this way, angling into the trapdoors that we can then open up whenever we need it, I think that makes for a really good solution. And to keep it even lower profile, we could use barrels here instead of chests. That way, if someone's using the F3 debug menu trick of trying to scan for entities, they're not gonna find your stuff, keeping it looking good and safe. Endermites do not get a lot of use in my world. I mean, I'm barely using ender pearls to spawn them. But if you hate endermites, this is gonna change your mind. Since the endermites emit lit particles that could be used for a magical theme of some kind. And by tucking a few of these in the wall and giving them a name tag, we make it look as if our base is busting at the seams with magic. And putting these next to your brewing stands and everything like that, I think it fits in really well. You just might have to deal with a bit of noise, but hey, beauty is suffering, right? Despite what Mojang showed off, we haven't gotten fallen logs yet into the game in Java. I think this idea by Bolden Hill gives us a great way to tuck these into our world and have it look as if it's always generated that way. And particularly stripping away some of the interior and then using stairs of that color to make it on different levels, I think that's really unique. And it's a build hack that's not going to cost a lot, and you could even hide something secret underneath the bark of the tree. And it's a lot easier than building a regular custom tree. So if you want something that looks nice and is a lot easier, this would be my definite pick. By using walls of the same block type that you used for the full blocks of your wall, we can make a nice inset for our windows. And at the same time, it prevents your walls or windows from looking flat. I mean, just with this simple detail, we added so much depth to this base, all without having to complicate things for ourselves. And hey, if you use a stone cutter, you're not wasting any extra blocks trying to get the walls anyway. In fact, you're gonna find it cheaper, while still keeping it looking pretty good. You ever wonder where to stash your stuff after you've gone farming? Well, I think you should build one of these medieval carts to tuck all your stuff inside. By using a mix of logs, fences, fence gates, and slabs, we can then add on some buttons to finish off our wheels, and give yourself the perfect cart to add that little detail to your farm. I mean, the amber waves of grain are great to sing about, but they don't always look the most impressive. But placing one of these nearby, and all of a sudden your generic farm has a lot more character to it. For this build hack, you're going to want to get some silk touch and go down to the coral reef. While you're there, search out the blue tube coral block. And after you got a couple of those into your inventory, bring it up to the surface, waterlog a block on the ground, and then place your tube coral on top, and then line the outside of it with trapdoors. And once you flip those up, you got a basket of blueberries to sell, which is another way to add a splash of color to your farm, which can be pretty necessary if you haven't yet gotten things like carrots. Did you know you're able to sleep underwater? Yeah, and if you don't have any drowned around, it's actually a very safe place to sleep. It just might be a pain to respawn there. But by using a mix of quartz and coral fans, you can make this open clam design that we see here. We can create the kind of bed that you're not going to be disappointed to swim out of in the morning. And when you don't have to worry about the extra mobs as well, I think this build hack's plenty practical along with how pretty it is. Item frames don't make for a good decoration just by themselves, but by placing down a scaffolding on the floor and then a couple of things of pressure plates along the outside of it, we can then add that item frame on top of each of these pressure plates, and we'll have perfectly decorated a new table for us to have inside of your build. I mean, they fit perfectly within the texture of the scaffolding, and considering you can put stuff inside of these item frames, that's also 4 secret item slots for you. And considering none of your friends are hopefully gonna go through and break your stuff, this might be a pretty good secret hiding spot. How did we get this coral on a shelf? Well, it wasn't with the help of a debug stick or any kind of creative mode commands, but instead by adding a waterlogged stair facing away from us inside of the wall. Then when we place this coral on top of our trap door, that's all that it takes to be hydrated out of it. Now don't ask me how this works, because a waterlogged stair facing this way would actually never leak water towards us. But if it works for the coral, it works for me. I think it works pretty nice in your base. If you're able to get enough turtles skewed together to make a turtle shell helmet, then we could tuck this armor stand into the floor, and once we've pushed another block on top of it, we can add an item frame to this top block, and that'll perfectly line the rim of this shell, giving us what looks like a 3D turtle shell inside of Mario. I mean Minecraft, but it looks that good, it's hard to tell the difference. Just make sure that the armor stand's standing on 3 or 4 layers of snow, and it'll be just fine. Using ad rods for chandelier is already a great touch, but if you don't have enough of those, then you could always add in iron bars, and then it looks like dead lights that are hanging on your end rod chandelier, which if you're going for a haunted mansion kind of vibe, I think that fits perfectly. And it involves a lot less trips to the end too. I mean, unless you're using the iron bars from the dragon cages over there, which in that case, hey, I won't judge. I know I'm the last person to say this, but sometimes the cauldron can have a use in your build. I know, I was shocked too. But if you want to have a place to safely remove the dyes from your shulker boxes after you're done, then by placing a cauldron on top of this campfire like so, we can then line the sides with open fence gates and armor stands placed into the ground, and it not only looks convincing as a 1-block tall cooking pot design, but it also can be filled up with water and be fully functional for that purpose. Oh, and we can also use the campfire down here and don't have to worry about any of the items popping off into a place that we can't reach, which all of that for me works pretty well. We've talked about how to put a stove inside of your Minecraft world. And now here's how to boil water in Minecraft. All we gotta do is place down a water source block on top of a magma block like this, and then by lining it with trapdoors so that we don't spill out into the rest of the kitchen, that bubble animation works perfectly to give us something you'd be happy to cook your spaghetti in. And Minecraft's water physics aren't realistic enough to let it boil over, so this will be safe if you want to leave it in your kitchen be. You might not think of a cactus as a chair, but after seeing this, you'll reconsider. By first placing down a flower pot with a cactus block inside of it, we can then line it with whatever kind of carpet of our choice, and then add a trapdoor to that back there to give us the back for that chair. And now we've got a stool design that you can put at your next bar top. And if any guests start overstaying their welcome, you can always just break the carpet and make them sit on a cactus itself. After a while, placing down a lot of signs just looks bad. So if you want to cut down on that, but still give the information to any players who walk through spawn, then this newspaper stand seems like the perfect option to me. Simply put down a lectern with a book filled up with any kind of useful info that you need, whether that's the coordinates to where certain farms are, or how they use the different things around the base. Then you can add in trapdoors, a few extra signs of our own, and this stair over the top to make it look like we're selling newspapers that are ready for anyone to read. You know, if people still do that reading thing. Bridges are nothing new to Minecraft, but a rusty bridge, that's something fresh. Ironically so, I guess. With the help of the new mangrove roots, we can make these cool metal bridges to connect parts of your industrial base. And while I wouldn't suggest stepping on top of it without a tetanus shot, it does make for a new staple to a post-apocalyptic build. Now here's a tip if you're in creative. If you do Control and middle mouse button to do the pick block, that'll copy the NBT data, and now you can place down a whole row of these without having to type in the actual message, which gives us a great looking bridge and one that you can't fall off of. Both of those are appreciated. Well, there's definitely some pretty variations of basalt. The regular block by itself leaves something to be desired. I mean, for one, it reminds you of the basalt deltas, and those are not a fun biome to be in by any means. But as this user shows off, by mixing together the directionality of the block, we can actually get some quite pretty results to mix into your paths. Or if you want to take it another step, if you look closely, you can see that this actually matches the texture of an oak log pretty well. Place two of these vertically with some cobblestone for the leaves, and you basically got a charred tree. That looks pretty cool in the nether if you ask me. And it's not gonna burn down to any ghasts. We might have built this out of mud, but these aren't mud blocks. Rather, by using brown mushroom blocks like this, we can mix it in as something of a smooth mud texture. And honestly, seeing this proof of concept, I'm amazed that smooth mud wasn't added in with the rest of the textures. Because seeing this, it really does look nice. And with 1.20's new archaeology, we have plenty of these new decorated pots to, well, decorate with. I guess that much is obvious. And while you can't plant anything inside of these, they do only have a 1-block hitbox, despite what it might look like with this little lip here. So if you add on different kinds of pressure plates on top of them, we can get some cool trims or lids to our actual pot, which is way more than we've ever been able to do with the small one. And I think the one with the bamboo looks particularly nice here. Or you can bling it out with gold, but that seems a little excessive. Maybe if you want a gold chain on your urn, I don't know. A boat is a good asset to keep on hand, but if you're gonna stash in a chest, then maybe try this instead. Taken after this user, all it takes is a trapdoor and a chain to make a convincing crane for your shipyard. And then, if you want to go for a ride, simply hop in the boat and row it offshore. Now, the new seeds that we're able to get from the sniffer, when you plant them down, you notice that they start out looking great, but when they grow up, they look like they're an Avatar reject. Another way to fix this for our pitcher pot is to place it down next to your potatoes, and then place a string over top. So then, no matter how much time or bone meal passes through it, it's never going to grow up to be 2 blocks tall. And now you've got an overgrown potato to mix in with the rest of your patch. Just make sure you don't accidentally break the string while you're harvesting your other potatoes. These are the rarest blocks to build with in Minecraft, because you can't build with them. But if we take after this user, we might just have a way to incorporate the sun and moon into our designs. And for me personally, I love the creativity here. And the fact that these only show up on the build for a limited amount of time, I think makes it even more special, making it more of a light show than a static statue. Armor stands not only let us display our armor, but also use that armor as a decoration. And this here's my favorite instance. See, while this looks like a regular chest to the outside world, when you open it up, we're treated to a proper golden treasure inside. And the setup is surprisingly simple. All we need to do is lay our armor stand on a block with a shorter hitbox, in this case, an enchantment table, and then push a regular block in a chest into its place with a piston. And from there, what I love most about this is that the helmet fits right within the spot of the chest texture, almost like it's meant to be. Shroom lights are a really unique texture, and while they fit within the nether, when you take them over to the overworld, they're usually gonna look out of place. Or they would, unless we did this build hack. Since by placing a few of these down with another nether block, the weeping vines on top, then it'll stick out as a convincing pineapple patch within your build. Granted, that's a lot of pineapple, but I like pineapple. I'm not gonna judge. And hey, it's also gonna stop any mobs from spawning nearby, giving you both a build hack and a nice ambient lighting solution. I'll take both of those. And that's not to say there isn't a use for the actual green bamboo as well. Since if you were to go over to a desert and mix this in with your regular cactus, then we can actually get a pretty convincing looking fake cactus
cactus here. And you can also plant little things on top of it, giving us cactus fruit. And at this point, I well prefer this over the competition. Sorry.
If you mix in a couple of upside down barrels into your floor, then you'll notice that we get quite the pattern to spice up your spruce texture. Oh, and not to mention the fact that you'll be able to fill up all of them with some hidden storage space, which I guess gives us a literal way of tucking our money in between the floorboards. A nice touch for sure. This archway is entirely possible using no commands, and the reason for that is because rails don't break on trapdoors when we flip them down. So we can make this design without using any structure voids or barrier blocks. Just have a rail up here, have the two ends point up to it, and then break the center so that they'll stay in place. It really is that easy. If you ask someone their favorite color, brown's rarely gonna come up, which is probably why blocks like granite and podzol are considered to be a pretty ugly block. But as Jaredcraft shows off, if you use that to your advantage, you can get some really cool looking stuff. And I do think using this for landscaping actually goes a long way, since here we get a lot more subtle tones to use than just having regular dirt. Dirt and coarse dirt by themselves, not exactly pretty, but using it as the landscape for a wasteland like this, you get something pretty special. It's distinct enough from the mesa biome, but it's also not one note. I like it. By just using a couple of stone slabs and stairs, we can redesign our mine to look so much better. And now these different layers of depth actually make it look as if someone mined there, instead of just leaving a smooth wall of ores and rocks. And while there's no way to make ore slabs in the game, if you cover them up just right using plain stone, you can at least make pretend that there is. And I think that's much better than what we had before. As we know, armor stands are entities, not blocks, which means there's a lot of opportunity that comes from overlapping multiple blocks in armor stand hitboxes. And with the Caves and Cliffs update, that came in the form of the telescope. After aligning the legs of the armor stands just right, we can fashion ourselves a base to then lay out our copper lightning rods. And while I wouldn't recommend looking through this on a stormy day, this might be a neat detail to add to your next observatory.
Now, when Bamboo was first released, the first thing that many fans noticed is that it looks a lot like spaghetti, especially the mosaic block. So why don't we just embrace it? Since with an invisible item frame and a mosaic block like this, we can again put a heavy-weighted pressure plate over top, and we got ourselves some spaghetti noodles. With the changes to Bamboo, we also now have a new kind of bamboo boat. Or raft, I should say. And what makes this better than a regular boat is that if you were to place down enough snow layers like so, stacking up 4 high, then when you put the raft into place, we can cover up the rest of it with carpet like this, so that when you sit in the raft, it looks like you're sitting on the carpet. Or in my case, it looks like I'm melting into the carpet, so maybe choose a different color.
Since the trapdoors that you get from the nether don't burn, we can use a crimson trapdoor like this to make a really nice furnace design. And if you wanted to, you could even flip open that trapdoor and toss in your ancient debris to get it actually smelted, since that won't burn in the lava that you tuck inside. With the different item frame variants, there are plenty of ways to display your stuff, but understandably, you might want something even more. So in that case, I should tell you about this way to encase your items in glass. As I'm sure you guessed, by tossing together our invisible armor stands within the glass block, we can make something of a display case to put in our world, which I think looks great, and it would definitely open up some nifty possibilities. So whether you're building this to showcase items in a vending machine or a shop, or you just want a snow globe around the holidays, I think there's plenty of creativity this allows us to see. It's hard to say anything in Minecraft really looks comfy. I mean, with so many straight lines and hard edges, even the beds look uninviting. And while there's only so much we can do to fix that, maybe we can start by adding a few of these pillows to your local lounge. And while these might not exactly be the throw pillows we see in our day-to-day, at least they're still made of wool. Look at how much of a difference we have between this leaf block and this one here. And the only thing that we added in to make that was a couple of vines like so. And to me, it's so amazing how far we can go with such a simple design. Though I must mention that if you plan on adding this, you might want to invest in some string as well. That way you can limit how far the vines actually grow and make sure that your new plant doesn't get out of hand. Cobwebs are annoying, but here they're essential, because with just a trapdoor and a backboard, we have all we need to make ourselves a simple basketball hoop. And if you want, you can even pick up a piece of orange concrete and throw it through, and it'll fall right through the cobweb. Nothing but net. It's a long-held fact in architecture that water features can really add to the atmosphere. I mean, after all, that's why they're called water features. But adding those into Minecraft isn't as fun when just one water source block is a cubic meter in size. So to have something smaller scale, then it turns out that waterlogged stairs are the solution. And with these, we can get an amount of water more appropriate for any canals, creeks, or streams that you plan on building. Since armor stands are entities, we can overlap them within the same hitbox. And when you do it, their textures will start to overlap, which wouldn't sound ideal, but here, it's a good thing. And following this user's advice, all we have to do is place down one armor stand in the direction that you want, and put the first of our 2 colors on top of it. And then with another one facing the same direction on a block or trapdoor above it, we put the second color on, drop them into place,
And we'll get this two-tone shirt to show off on your shelves, which I think is pretty sweet. Stop building your chimneys like this, but instead, do them like this. Since by adding in just a wall and a stone pressure plate, the smoke can still pass through the top, and it'll make the campfire design look a lot more realistic. If we place down 2 spruce trapdoors like so, and then add in chains over top, we have ourselves all that we need for a cute little swing to hang off of your tree. And honestly, I love how the metal bits on the spruce trapdoor seem to blend in with the chains that we got here as well. It all just works so perfectly. If you look across different cultures, you're bound to see these things pop up. And while these floating lanterns might work well over here, we can actually put them to use in our Minecraft worlds. See, it is true that lanterns can't be placed unsupported, but with the help of trapdoors, we can not only place them in the sky, but also give them the casing to look like real life, giving us results that are bound to give even Tangled some competition. When banners do their swaying animation, they clip within certain blocks, which seems like a glitch, but we're gonna use it as a feature. With trapdoors in this banner pattern, we can make it look as if this face is actually blinking, or at the very least, it's checking its surroundings before it goes back to sleep. As I talked about in previous facts videos, water's able to hydrate crops even if it's just passing through air. So we can use that subtle hydration to be able to make these kind of designs like so, where our farmlands place the trapdoors lining it, and then we hide the water source under something like this with a moss carpet over top. And then we don't have to worry about dropping our crops into water, or dropping ourselves if we happen to step too close to the canal. Instead of placing your bed on the floor, place it in the sky. With this user's hammock, we get the perfect thing for our new mangrove swamps, or really any place that has trees. Just put your bed on some trapdoors, connect it using stairs, fence gates, and carpet, and the end result will be more than worth it for a good night's rest. This carpet's bougie, but with one look, it's worth it. Especially since shulkers are now renewable as of recent updates, so we can use the spares that we get for this extra fancy carpet design. Just place your shulker boxes facing inward, and you can have it in all the same colors that you would for a traditional carpet, making it an easy switch if you already have the funds. While we didn't get the tough golem in 1.21, the new tough blocks are great ways to add trims to your wooden walls. Especially pairing this with stripped dark oak as you can see in this example, you get some really pretty results. And honestly, if I was andesite, I'd be worried seeing this. See this splash of color in the water? Well, this here's a life preserver. And it's so easy to build, I'm sure you can tell how to do it just by looking at it. But what really goes the extra mile here is that you can tie your boat to a lead and attach it to a fence underneath the ring of glass, making it look like it's actually attached to the life preserver. By taking brick stairs and alternating them in a pattern like so, we have it in just a way where it looks like there's a brick missing from each of these steps. And I think that's just perfect. And not only is this a little funny thing to put in your world, but when mixed into a wall like this example, it actually adds some convincing depth. And when you zoom out, it might even leave some people wondering how you actually built it, which I think is true of all the great build hacks. If you ask me, it's fun to build things in Minecraft that don't make sense at a first glance. Like, take a look at this pond for example. As it appears, the stone pattern is placed off-center from the actual grid, but what's actually happening is that we're using waterlogged stairs and slabs to keep those textures, but then make the blocks our own way. And while it's a fun surprise to pull in your friends, I also think it looks quite nice as well. Don't light your candle on fire, but instead, you might want to try this. See, by adding in unlit gray candles to the top of our iron fence, we had the perfect detail in for our metal bars. And what's even better in my eyes is that the wick out the top even kind of looks like barbed wire poking out. A nice touch. Minecraft doesn't offer up much of its own vehicles, but that doesn't stop the community from building plenty of their own. So if you like building excavators and tanks at your base, maybe add this to the mix. By using blocks with different depths, such as sandstone stairs in a desert biome, we can make vehicle treads for added realism. And now we just need dirt stairs to make this in the rest of the overworld biomes. By placing one banner up top on your roof and then another banner attached to a sign like this, we can overlay the two and make something of curtains to decorate our rooms. And as this example shows off, if you give these a gradient pattern, that can look really nice to adorn something like an enchanting room. Or just put them to the side of any entrance, and then it looks like you got a privacy screen. I think that's a really nice touch. Let's face it, making a wall look interesting is none too straightforward, but it's a problem we need to solve to avoid a boring build. So to fix that, we need to use different variants of the same texture. Like, why have just an andesite wall that looks like this, when we could use literal andesite walls to give something of a carved out illusion? And by partnering those together with stair slabs and buttons, we can give that lump of rock a lot more personality than it once had. By this point, we're all plenty familiar with the grass block texture, which means using this in a build can often feel tired, or at the very least, underwhelming. But fortunately, we've got some blocks in recent years to help break up that monotony. Like, why not add a strip of moss to the green in your yard to make it look mowed? Or even just mixing in some green concrete powder here and there can help to texture those paths we've seen hundreds of times before. Minecraft doesn't have any elephants, but this might be the reason why. Since if we take after this user's example, we're able to build all of these animals as trophies to place on our wall. And if you wanted to make this a little less barbaric, you could always just change it in such a way where it's made entirely out of one kind of stone, and then it's a statue instead of a brutality. Whatever keeps Pete off your case is fine by me. By using just a candle and a chainmail helmet, we can get a pretty convincing mouse and keyboard setup. And hey, for an added bonus, enchant the helmet for an RGB effect. Or if you're more of a console player, don't sweat it. A black stone wall does the trick for that as well. If you can't see the lights here, that's kind of the point. Since if we place these carpet layers in such a way on top of strings, then we can use that to hide the lighting from the top. And there you go, the light gray carpet matches the stone texture pretty well, and that way you don't have to see a distracting block of glowstone that takes away from the rest of your build. So if you're looking for a subtle way to keep monsters from spawning, I'd say this technique's worth a try. Minecraft torches don't burn out, but we can make it look like they do. By simply using redstone torches instead, we can power these to make a really cool effect for your next mineshaft. And considering the only other way to get torches to burn out is to play on the April Fool's release of Minecraft 2.0, I'd say this is a step up, for sure. Here's how to build the Wither without actually building the Wither. Since if we take after this user and mix together the right number of stairs and slabs, then we can carve out this perfect Wither shape into your next wall. And then for an added bit of detail, mixing in something like chiseled nether brick, which has the Wither skull texture in it, could work perfectly for the heads behind the wall. I mean, that's too good to pass up on. And it's a lot less destructive than the real thing. Mineshafts add a classic bit of detail to the Minecraft caves, but while they work when they're 3 blocks wide, pulling off a 2x2 does not seem as possible. Or at least it wouldn't if we didn't have the debug stick. But using one of these, we can fix our fences to only connect along the walls, meaning we fashion a center gap just the same. With a mix of carpet and wool blocks, we can lay out the perfect rug to have ourselves a picnic. And then by using pressure plates for the, well, plates, we can really make this look as if it's lived in. And for my money, the best part of this whole facade is using an invisible item frame to add in a little shovel for a spoon. That's just perfect. Chandeliers are great, but expensive. But with the help of glowberries, we can do it for a lot cheaper, all without sacrificing the look inside. With a couple of these cave vines, we can hang them off our roof and then clip the ends so that they stay just right where we want them. And there you go, a chandelier for a light source, and we did it all without having to break the bank. I'd say both of those count for a win. Every builder loves half slabs, but while these are great, they're not ubiquitous, meaning we're fairly limited in the half steps we can use. Or so you thought. Since if we take after this user, we can actually use beds as a substitute. See, all it takes is placing one of the 16 bed types and then right-clicking it with a debug stick to get something of a colorful slab to use. And sure, the feet might be a giveaway from this angle, but anywhere else, the illusion does the trick. When it's laid out like so, these trapdoors don't look like much, but as soon as we flip them up, you'll notice that this user gave us the design for some pretty neat trapdoor boxes to have in your base. And what I love most about these is that they don't all look the same, giving you some realistic variety to how the boxes play out. It's just learning that pattern's gonna be tough, but if you look at it with these birch trapdoors, it becomes a lot more obvious what to do. Since hanging roots can be waterlogged, if we combine pink glass with waterlogged hanging roots, we can place these in our ocean to make our very own jellyfish. And when viewed from the right angles, the direction of the roots even makes it look as if the jellyfish is swimming, which I think is just adorable. Minecraft transportation is a tried and tested topic, but if you're not worried about the fastest way to travel, then why not opt for some more style? And for that, you can't do much better than a bicycle. Through armor stands and partially submerged banners, you can make a pretty convincing vehicle in your Minecraft world. Or convincing until you try to bike somewhere, because then, not so much. Minecraft banners don't show wear and tear, but we're about to add both of them in. By using gray patterns like this one on a gray wall of stone, we can make it look as if the banners were torn during a battle, which will help us tell the story of a more desecrated part of the castle. And since we can use even more muted colors for the dye, we can add those in and make it look as if the banner's fading with age. Fish tanks make a great conversation starter to have in your base, but not everyone could justify building one that big. So if you're looking for more of a fishbowl than a fish tank, then this might be the trick. See, if you rest a minecart on top of a waterlogged set of sea pickles, then any fish inside will stay hydrated, giving us a much smaller footprint and a new roommate for the house. Instead of stairs, here's why you should use walls. Since when you're trying to get a slope in your build, whether that's for a roof or something else, you'll notice that walls made of the same block are capable of making a smoother yet steep slope that you can show off in your build. And if you don't have a stone cutter, these do end up being cheaper than using stair blocks as well. And in my eyes, that's a win on both fronts. Obviously, there's a case for just using the flowering azalea leaves for this, but I think we could do even better. Since if you have some bookshelves, I know, it sounds weird, follow me out, and then overlay our leaves on top of that, the way it works, the leaves actually cover all of that plank texture, meaning that we're just seeing the sparks of color that come through, making it look like flowers deep in a bush. When you're overlaying blocks in a build, you've not only got to consider the texture on top, but also the background. Let me explain with this scenario. Say you've got a set of vines climbing along the stone wall. It looks fine, but if we add some copper ore to the backdrop, then it gives off the illusion of flowers on the vines. And it's the little things like this that definitely help to show that you're considering all parts of the build. And while it's still true that you can't plant anything inside of the decorated pots, if you add on a fence post like this and then some leaves out the top, then you not only got a plant inside of your pot, but it also fits it better than a regular sapling would. Seems a little teeny. Minecraft swamps are set for a lot of change, and with that comes plenty of new plants to see. However, that doesn't mean mean we can't add in a few of our own. So until they're announced, why not fake it with this cattail creation? All you need to do is place 2 support blocks, lay out your brown candles, and then replace the support with a plant of your choice. And it's definitely a way to take your sugarcane into the next level.
If you look closely, you'll notice that some Minecraft textures you don't expect to work together do it just perfectly. And such is the case when you put the target block next to the quartz pillar texture, since they both have these evenly spaced lines that blend together nicely. And that could give you some cool opportunities to use these for, not just for a target range, but maybe it's a way to mark a pillar for a secret as well. Or maybe it's graffiti. The choice is up to you.
Fences and walls are commonplace in any Minecraft build you visit, and while they're nice enough blocks to use, I think we need to do better. But luckily on Bedrock, that solution is super simple. Over here, it's possible to put different buttons on top of the posts. And while we can't do the same on Java, a bonus tip for there is that by adding string on top of walls, we can make them into columns when we choose to. When you're trying to sell the atmosphere of a build, it's the small things that'll make the biggest difference. And when we talk about that, particle effects definitely stand out against the rest. You see, say you're building a dungeon or a basement in your world, and you want to prove that it's run down. Well, add some water over top and a waterlogged stair below, and now you can prove that this place is damp and dreary. End rods are an expensive light source, but when used like this, it might be worth the splurge. By just placing these horizontally, we can line the sides with leathers and make a sleek looking fluorescent light. And as this post notes, this could look great when you place it above a couple of your crops, especially because the particle effects will make it look like it's watering them, adding both function and form to the farm. Here's how you should use your grindstone in an enchantment room, since placing it like this is boring. But if we add this in, then it's not a grindstone, but instead a pet owl, which fits a lot more with the magical aesthetic of the room anyway. So if you're playing on a server with the player head data pack installed, take this as your sign to build yourself a headwig. It certainly looks better than the alternative. Here's how to make a pool table. Since we're able to overlap carpet with signs, all we need to do is add green carpet to lay over an oak and spruce sign, and that'll make it look like a pool cue when you look at it from the top of the field, which I've got to say is much better than this old design of using grass blocks and signs around the edges. Now, a cool feature of banners is that if you right-click one with a map, you're able to make a waypoint. But taking that one further, what if we didn't just make one of these, but 100 of them? That way we could form different routes along a map wall. So if you're wanting to color code paths along your world, this is a great way to do that. Whenever you build a farm, you're bound to have these little patches of water that are hanging around, and unfortunately those break up the farmland texture. But instead, if we use dark oak slabs like this, we can waterlog them to hide that water, yet still hydrate all the crops around. And then, if you're looking for something even more to do with that slab, you could add on a scarecrow like this with a jack-o'-lantern face. Now you got yourself a light source as well, which will solve 2 problems with one solution. Stairs aren't the only block that you can use as stairs, and this modern design proves that. With a mix of end rods for a light source and these carpet-covered iron trap doors, we get a unique floating staircase that still makes sense. And while this looks great, the only thing you should keep in mind is that you can only walk up these seamlessly if you start first from an end rod. Because if you start from this block down here, you're gonna have to jump up at least the first step. It seems like everything these days is getting a whole spectrum of wood types to choose from, all except for ladders. So if that lack of representation is getting you down, then smokers might be a surprising solution. As you'll see, using the backside of smokers, you can give a somewhat spruce-like, kind of industrial texture to your world. And then, even if you add regular ladders on top for functionality, that extra board is gonna give a lot more depth than just a ladder on some cobblestone. With just a blue glass block and a tripwire hook, we can make this simple little water cooler for your office building. And while that alone should do the trick, if you want to make the water in your water cooler even colder, let's use an ice block instead, just as long as it doesn't melt from a nearby light source and spring a leak. Don't worry, we didn't just drop steak on the ground, but instead, if we were to use steak in invisible item frames, we can make it look like muddy footprints on the dirt, or you can make it look like someone tracked mud onto your white carpet. And you can even rotate them for an alternating pattern, which makes it even more believable. Sometimes the blocks you least expect it can work out the best, and that's definitely the case with this castle gate. Now, never in a million years would I have thought to use lecterns in this way, but after seeing this post, I'm well inclined to believe it's the right choice. And honestly, I think it looks even better than their intended purpose anyway. Here we're gonna use levers and trapdoors, but not how you'd think, since instead of flipping them open, we're gonna use those levers as a support, which if you step back to this view, looks very nice, almost as if we're using them to lift up the windowsill. And honestly, I think this would look great for any kind of shelves that you want to put inside of the house as well. And while it's impossible to place these hanging signs by themselves, all we have to do is link them up to something like a trap door, and then we'll have the perfect thing for our little railroad crossing. Now granted, it doesn't lift, so it's more of a railroad stopping. When it comes to lighting up a body of water, the answer isn't always straightforward. Obviously, torches don't gel in that situation, so we'll need to look elsewhere. And if you're looking for something a little less costly than glowstones or sea lanterns, then regular lanterns might be your pick. By throwing these on the underside of a lily pad, we get a really slick way to subtly light up your ponds and lakes. Building over water can be a real hassle. After all, since the liquid lacks a hitbox, it's not exactly easy to build in the ocean, and most of the time we have to start with a pillar from the lake bed to even place one block. But thankfully, we have lily pads for a better alternative, and using these, we can start from the surface instead of diving deep. deep. And that alone can save us a bunch of time on any and all future pirate builds. This is my pet parrot, but it needs a cage. And since it's so small, it doesn't need a whole pen like regular animals, but it can also fly, so the fence isn't that helpful. Enter the scaffolding block. With a single scaffolding like this, it looks like a wooden bird cage, and it has just the right amount of room for a parrot to sit snug inside. And even when they're in the cage, they'll still have plenty of room to dance when you put on the chirp music disc. While Minecraft has its fair share of foodstuffs, the cake is the only one that we can place as a decoration, so for the rest of them, we'll need to get innovative, such as this pork roast made from a stripped birch log. And while it's probably too crispy to make a meal out of it, I think it sells the illusion pretty well. And for a campsite build, that might be all you need. Just for your sake, don't actually use a fire underneath it. Tridents actually have a use in building. Don't believe me? Well, take a look at this. By simply throwing a trident into place on a flower pot, we can make our very own mop to put on display. Is it expensive? Sure. But going the extra mile for details is always worth it in my eyes. Now, unlike in Zelda, these pots are actually pretty resilient, and they don't fall, which weirdly enough means that we can use one of these to make ourselves a hot air balloon, with a few chains connecting it up, and then, of course, the balloon part of your hot air balloon. Place a candle perfectly in the hole and light it to fuel our hot air balloon. And then you can use a debug stick to connect these up to the pot. And there you go, ready for takeoff, or stand still, whichever one you prefer, I guess. Sometimes it's the textures you least expect that work out the best, and I think there's something kind of beautiful about that. Like if you were gonna build out your wooden floor, you'd probably never think to use beehives. But it turns out these buzzing blocks can work surprisingly well for a tile pattern. Every now and then, a simple trick is all you need. So while I'm sure your harbor already looks great, wouldn't it look just that little bit better if you switched the sunken oak logs for dark oak instead? That way, the darker texture would make the logs look water-worn and wet, adding that little bit of character to your build. In most cases, dried kelp seems like a pretty useless food source, but while they might seem like garbage, they're actually pretty effective as trash. Let me explain. By crafting a chunk of these into some dried kelp blocks, we get the perfect texture for industrial trash bags, letting us add some new life into your city's alleyway. When it comes to storing items, Minecraft's got plenty of options, but displaying those items, that's a bit more limited. Might I suggest campfires? Now sure, when they're lit, these things can only keep the items on for so long, but as soon as you put out that fire, they'll stay in place. So if you want a shelf for your steaks, I guess this does the trick. And we're not the only ones who get to use the new armor trim, since if we go down here and summon in a few mobs that can pick up loot, then you'll notice that sure enough, we can also kit these out in the different kind of armor trims as well, which might just be too costly to give them in survival, but for map makers, this can make for some really cool super mobs. Did you ever notice that the spruce door and the spruce trap doors look eerily similar? Well, using that, we can place two trap doors on the floor and make the illusion of a torn down or damaged front door. And funnily enough, this should actually keep out adult zombies better than the actual door anyway. With a couple doors like this and trap doors placed horizontally, we're able to overlap these on top of our armor stands and get ourselves a very own functioning wardrobe. And while the armor that you place inside might be expensive, I guarantee that the wood needed to build this wardrobe is nothing like that, giving you at worst a cool build, and at best, it might even help to hide some of that armor in case you need it. One of the inescapable truths in Minecraft is that grass is a very different color map depending on the biome, meaning if you place a green grass block from your inventory inside of a desert, all you're gonna see is yellow. And that's unfortunate, or it was until the Caves and Cliffs update. Now, with the help of the moss blocks and azalea leaves, we can get green lush colors wherever we'd like, and that'll definitely help your oasis to actually look like an oasis. Now, while it's still true that we can only plant things inside of the regular flower pot, if we mix that together on top of our decorated pot like this, then it fits just right, the textures match, and we can still plant our bamboo inside. Even though Minecraft does have birds, it's funny that the only eggs that we see hatching are turtle eggs. And while I doubt that that's changing anytime soon, we can at least play pretend using this trick. By throwing down your egg of choice on top of a bed of coral, we can make a pretty convincing egg in a nest effect. And hey, if you can add a waterlogged slab, then the coral sticks will have a lot more color as well. For the building community, the addition of candles in the Caves and Cliffs update was a big deal. And while they're useful as a light source, their unlit form can also function as a decoration, like so, where we use the candles as a stem for our plants and bushes, or even as a flower on top of cactus blocks. Just before you place them, remember to use a solid block first, and then you can swap it out for the leaves. Redstone is great, but secret redstone is even better. So, in that case, why settle for having a button out in the open when you could instead just tuck the thing behind a banner and keep it out of plain sight? That way, your secret entrance can have an equally secret input for extra security. And if it keeps those greedy people away from your stuff, I think this is definitely worthwhile. By using a mix of furnaces that face outward and inward, we can make ourselves a sidewalk and the gutter to put inside, which I think is a really nice touch if you hide the front with a slab. And if you've got plenty of cobble from all the time that you spent down mining, I think this is finally a good use for it. When you're decorating your house, then a couple of plants can really liven it up. Though while others settle for a standard sapling in the flower pot, we can get a bit more creative. And sure enough, by using a bamboo stem and a glowberry bush, we can make a cute tree to show off on your shelf. And since the glowberries can extend off the roof, this plant could really be be about as tall as you like. From here, this just looks like a smoker, but as soon as we add a lever on top, then it starts to look like an old television set. And granted, we might have to do what this users suggest and squint really hard to see it, but I think for a set piece in an old living room, this can definitely do the trick. I'll be the first to admit that paintings do not get a lot of use in my world, and while that's true, I think an implementation like this has a lot more of a reason to exist. By doing this, we go from a bland piece of wall decor into a nice piece of world building, and I think that's a worthwhile trade-off. Plus, this is fairly simple to build. All we need to do is push a trapdoor into place with our armor stand, and then add a 1x1 painting to the front. You could use these hanging signs as a really convincing fallen bridge. And with the way that the chains actually connect these up, they have a collision box, I think this looks so much better than the sign design we've shown off in the past. But since I made this too small, it's really just more stopping you from going over the bridge. So given the state the bridge is in, that might be for the best. For the building community, the advent of glow ink sacks is a pretty big game changer. And while the glow squid itself has been talked about to death, its drop might actually give you some neat opportunities. For instance, with the ability to make text on signs glow in the dark, we could tuck some of these in a dark cave and add in some creepy, atmospheric eyes in the darkness. And as long as your visitors don't step too close, this illusion should more than hold up. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?